What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video, and today we're gonna be going over how I managed to pay off over $50,000 in debt over the last 24 months. All right, so like I said, this video we're gonna be going over how I managed to pay off right around $50,000 worth of debt in the last 24 months, and ultimately what I had to sacrifice in order to get this paid off and get this out of my life. Now, I will say, I'm not completely debt-free as of yet. By the end of the year, I will be, but I wanted to just do a video about this so that those of you that are interested in getting started and you want to start paying things off, you guys can take this information, you can start applying it, and you can start using it today to go ahead and get a jump start on paying things off. I was going to wait to do this until everything was paid off, but I don't want to wait 2 months and then potentially have some of you guys who can use this information and get ahead right now versus waiting 2 more months. So let's hop right into this video. I'm gonna go over the 10 things that I had to sacrifice. Now, there's probably more than I'm even listing, to be honest, because I've sacrificed so much over the last 2 years. I've had to dramatically change my lifestyle. I'm making more money than I've ever made, but I'm living as if I'm only making a fraction of what I'm actually making. So the first thing that we're gonna go ahead and sacrifice would be any luxury items. So this would be things that are absolutely non-essential to your everyday life. And some of the other categories I'm gonna go over kind of fit into this as well. But this is the biggest thing that I think most people can cut away. This would be things like buying new clothes, because typically you have all the clothes that you're gonna need. You probably have more clothes than you are gonna need, and ultimately you really don't need any more new clothes. I know that you may want new clothes, but this video is all about getting rid of those wants and really bringing it down to a life of things that you just ultimately you only need. So things like new clothes, things like new shoes, things like maybe new bags or purses if you're a female watching this video. If you are a male, things like colognes, things like belts, things like, you know, even hats, stuff like this that you really don't need in order to actually live and to survive. This would be the first thing that you want to go ahead and cut out. So go through your bank statement is the first thing I recommend, and just see where you're spending your money. You know, maybe you bought $40 worth of hats last week, and then 2 weeks ago you bought $100 worth of clothes, and now this week, you know, you bought a new bag or something, a backpack. So ultimately, this is just cutting out those really unnecessary items, because we all spend too much money. We are all consumers in America. We all buy things that we do not ultimately need, and a lot of us are buying it with money that we don't have. And that's why you're probably watching this video, because you are using credit cards, you are in a financial bind, you are in a situation where you are tired of living month to month. So these are the things that you have to go ahead and start getting rid of. Number 2 would be eating out. Now, I'm somebody who loves food, don't get me wrong. I love to eat out. I love the experience of having somebody serve me food, me not having to clean up. I love that experience, but it's not a necessary thing. And so what I did was I cut this down to once a week. For one meal every week, I go out and I eat. And that saves me a lot of money, because I was typically eating out 4 or 5 times a week. And when you go out to eat, typically, even if it's just a Chipotle or a Subway, you're spending right around $10. So if you're doing that 5 times a week, you're spending $50 a week eating out, and $50 a week can actually buy you groceries literally for the entire week if you do things right. So it's a quick way to go ahead and save yourself almost $200 or more if you're somebody who eats out maybe multiple times a day, each and every day. So this is a great way to go ahead and clean up your budget. One thing that I do was I get my groceries every week, and I keep it very, very basic. I buy whole foods, nutritious foods, chicken, beef, rice, vegetables, and that's really it. Those are the best foods for your body. Those are the simplest foods. They are the easiest foods to cook, and ultimately they're really the cheapest foods when you start buying them in bulk. And you're gonna feel a lot better, and you're gonna have more energy from doing this anyway. But like I said, I like to eat out once a week. So typically on like a Friday or a Sunday, I will go out, and I'm not doing anything crazy fancy. I'm not going to a fancy dinner. I'm going to maybe Chipotle, or I'm going to Subway, like I said, or maybe I'm ordering a pizza, you know, for 10, 15 bucks. I'm doing that once a week, and that's ultimately saving me hundreds of dollars each and every month. All right, so number 3 would be non-essentials that we're gonna cut out. This would be things like, you know, you have an iPhone cord that you're currently charging your phone with, but you get annoyed that you have to keep moving it from the bedroom to the living room. So you go ahead and buy an extra iPhone cord to have in your living room so that you now don't have to move it back and forth. And while that is convenient, and while it may only be 10 or 15 bucks, the problem is when you start doing it with small things, you start doing it with the bigger things as well. Maybe you have wanted a coffee table in your living room, but you really don't need a coffee table, but you would like to have a coffee table. It's not really an essential item for you to be buying. And this also comes back to things like, you know, like when you take a shower, maybe you use shampoo and conditioner, maybe you really don't need the conditioner, especially if you're a male, you can stop buying the conditioner. It's just auditing these little tiny things and really trying to just cut down and live a simpler life and get rid of these tiny expenses. Those are really kind of just some examples that I could think of off the top of my head. I know the iPhone cords were a big one. I wanted to get another cord to charge my MacBook that I can have over by the couch so that I don't have to keep moving the charger back and forth. And then I want one that I can have in my backpack so that I can leave one here, have one over there, and have one in my backpack. But ultimately, it's not really an essential item because I currently have a charger. I need to be grateful that I have a charger. And in the future, when things change, that's when we can go ahead and actually buy more of the chargers to make life a little easier and more convenient. Number 4 that I sacrificed, and this is a big one, was I sold my car. As you guys know, a few months back, those of you that are watching the channel, you know that I got rid of my car in June. And the reason why I got rid of my car was mainly because it just had a lot of mechanical issues. It was a 2011 Audi. It had a lot of engine issues, you know, when they had these issues going on a few years back with Volkswagen and all the emissions and all the things where they were cutting corners. Ultimately, my model year had a lot of problems with it, and I was past the mileage that they were willing to actually cover those fixes. They were willing to cover it if you had under 80,000 miles. I had over 80,000, so they were actually not willing to cover it because I've driven it, you know, so heavily. And ultimately the car was gonna just cost me way too much money to keep it. I only owed about $6,000 left on the car, so I could have kept it and it would have been paid off in about a year. But I don't want to pay off a car and have a car that I'm gonna have to just keep pouring money into. So I just decided for now, I just wanted to go ahead and get rid of it. Like I said, I owed about $6,000 on the car. I took it to CarMax. They gave me $3,500. I paid them about $2,500, $3,000 to go ahead and just get rid of the car. And that way I don't have the payment anymore. I don't have the insurance. I don't have any gas. So instantly right away, that was able to save me the $412 car payment, the $120 insurance, and $150 to $200 in gas every single month. So right there, I'm already saving about $700 a month right off the bat. And this is something that I wish I could have done earlier, but I just did not have the funds to actually get rid of the car. So it wasn't really an option for me before. And while I was in LA, I was still doing Uber on the side. So it was like a way for me to make some extra money as well. And while I was here in Vegas, I never did Uber here in Vegas. So it wasn't really something where it was like actually making me any money. It was just taking money from me each and every month. I work from home. I literally leave my house like, I mean, I leave my house every day, but to go actually like out into like Las Vegas and go do what I need to do, I typically leave once or twice a week. So for me to do Uber is just a lot cheaper. It hasn't been the easiest. The first 2 weeks were very, very hard because I like to get in my car. I like to go for drives. I like to just get out of the house. It helps me to clear my mind. And ultimately I miss being able to just go to a gym versus working out here at the apartment. But these are sacrifices that you have to make. And the thing that really keeps me going and keeps me motivated to actually keep doing it is the fact that I know it's temporary. It's not forever. It's something I'm doing for a couple more months. And then from there, if we want to go ahead and get another car, we can, and we'll be in a much better position to actually do that. Number 5 that I did was I moved to an area that was a lower cost of living. I lived in Los Angeles for about 15 months and my rent was outrageous. On top of that, there was state income taxes. Everything was just higher taxes. Everything was just overall more expensive. So I moved here to Las Vegas, and honestly, I couldn't have made a better choice with that because your living costs, your rent are typically gonna be your highest cost. So if there's anywhere that you can really cut, it's gonna be your living expense. It's gonna be, maybe you have a 1-bedroom and you don't need it. You can get a studio. Maybe you have a 2-bedroom and you have that extra room because Well, when grandma comes in December, you like to have an extra room for your guests, but you're really paying all that money extra every single month to have an empty room that, you know, gets used once a year, when in reality, they can either stay at a hotel, they can sleep on the couch, you can get an air bed. There's multiple ways around that. There's no reason that you should be paying hundreds of dollars extra every single month just so that you can accommodate a guest that only comes once or twice a year. So this is by far the biggest area where you can save a ton of money, is cutting down on your housing expense. Maybe you don't need that house, get an apartment. Maybe you don't need to be living by yourself, you know, get a roommate. There's so many ways that you can cut things down. Ultimately, I could have gotten a roommate and made things even less for myself, but I know myself. I've always grown up as an only child, and I knew that getting a roommate just was not for me. So that's not what I decided to do, but maybe that would work for you. The sixth thing that I sacrificed would be entertainment. You know, I live in Las Vegas, so a lot of people would think that I'm always on the strip, I'm on the day clubs, I'm always going to shows, I'm doing all of these things, but in reality, so many people are doing these things and they're paying for it on credit cards. They really can't afford to be doing it, but they get suckered into always thinking that they need to go do these things, and they enjoy these things, and that's great. But if you're not in a financial position to be able to go do these things, then why are you doing it? I know for me personally, if I go and do something like a Las Vegas show, I'm not even gonna be able to go enjoy it, because I know deep down, like, you shouldn't be there. You know, you should have used that money to pay things off. You should have, you know, sacrifice this for the time being and just deal with the temporary pain, because on the other side of that pain is success. It's the feeling of not owing anybody anything. It's the feeling of actually owning the money that comes into your account. So by sacrificing, you know, any of these events and entertainment, you know, if I go to an event, it's a free event. I don't go to an event where I'm gonna have to pay $50, $100 just to get in, and then I gotta eat, and then I buy drinks, and then it just wastes so much money, and ultimately I knew that was something that I had to cut out. And number 7 would be cutting out subscriptions. This is things like your monthly Netflix, this is Hulu, this is Apple Music. What else did I cut out? Those were the main ones. The only one that I still keep to this day is the YouTube Premium, because I just use YouTube way too much. I don't like to see the ads, so I get the Premium. I like to listen on my phone a lot, and you can actually close the YouTube app and it keeps playing. I listen to it all the time when I'm at the gym, and I don't want to be in the middle of a workout really in the zone, then all of a sudden an ad comes on. So for me, that was the only subscription that I actually did keep, and that saves me a ton of money, because it's not only the money that you're saving, it's also when you have a Netflix subscription, here's what happens. You're paying the $15 for the monthly service, but now you're also kind of investing that you're gonna now spend hours in front of a television, which is hours that you could be working, which is hours that you could be producing something to make more money. Because at the end of the day, if you are broke, you should not be watching 3-4 seasons of Netflix in a week. You know, when you get off of work, you should not be sitting and watching television. You need to be getting to a second job. You need to be driving for Uber or whatever you're doing on the side to pay it off, start your business. I don't know what it is for you, but if you are broke, like, get real with yourself. And this is something that I had to do. I had to get humble. I had to get real with myself and say, look, we are broke right now, and we do not belong sitting in front of a television consuming a bunch of content. So that was a big step for me. And a lot of people just don't want to get real about that reality. But again, it is temporary. The 8th thing that I had to sacrifice was I do not date. I've not been in a relationship since I lived in Orlando, Florida. I have been on a total of 2 dates while I have lived here in Vegas, and that is it. And the reason why I did that was because I was just in a place where when you are always working, when you're coming home, like there is this loneliness factor. I work from home. So I started to get to a point where I let that kind of get to me, and I started to seek that external validation, I guess. And instead of actually meeting people in my community, working out at the gym, making friends, doing things that I actually enjoy, you know, I started to go the dating route, and ultimately it just was not for me. I knew that I'm not in a position to really be putting myself out there like that. I have to take care of my situation, get myself in a good position so that when I do get into a relationship, I can wholeheartedly fill that person up, because I'm already full and I'm not feeling bad about, you know, let's go to dinner, but let's not get the appetizer because I don't want to spend the money on it. Like, you know, I want to be in a position where I can fully pour into that relationship and pour into that person. And I just know that right now I'm not able to do that. I also just don't feel emotionally that I'm really at a point where I want to be in a relationship. And for me, that was, again, something that I had to get real about. You know, like I said, ever since I've left Orlando, I've not been in a relationship. I have been 100% completely celibate since leaving Orlando, which is amazing to me. I mean, it's the longest that I've gone, you know, doing that type of behavior. And honestly, it's a lot better than people would think it would be, because you don't get that feeling of like, oh, I got, you know, like you have to hook up with somebody, and then you get that like kind of icky feeling after, you know, like, yeah, you took care of what you needed to do, but now you like kind of don't feel good about yourself because you just kind of used that person for something. And this has come a lot from me just going to church more and just getting a little bit closer in my spirituality, and just realizing that sex is an exchange of energy. And if you are not on the same energy level, if that person, you know, doesn't align with you and you guys are connecting in that aspect, it's just not a good experience. So for me, that's just something that I've had to sacrifice. And at the end of the day, that is a good thing, because it keeps you closer to yourself. It protects your energy. And it's just a choice that I've made. I mean, not everybody's going to do it. Most people are not going to do it. And most people may not even agree with this. But for me, it's been an excellent choice. And it's just allowed me to really focus more on myself instead of seeking that external kind of relationship. Number 9 would be haircuts. Now, I used to get haircuts every single week when I lived in Florida. When I lived in LA, things got very expensive. It was like $50 for a haircut. When I was living in Los Angeles, and actually it's no different here in Vegas if you want a good one. So it's about $50 every time to get a haircut. So if I was to get a haircut every single week, it would be $200. And plus, now that I don't have a car, I would have to be Ubering, which the barber that I, you know, liked to go to would cost me about $50 round trip. So then I would be paying $100 a week for transportation and haircut, which is $400 a month on haircuts, which to me is just absolutely insane and does not make any sense for me. I don't want to spend $400 on something that, again, is not fully necessary. So ultimately, that's why I shaved my head about 2 months ago. And it was because I've always kind of wanted to see what I looked like without hair. I've always been curious, and I was like, right now is a great time. You know, let's do it. Let's save on the haircuts for the next couple months and see if we actually like the look that we get. And I think I can pull it off pretty good. I don't think it's my favorite look for myself, but it was something that I wanted to go ahead and try, and this was the perfect time to do so. Number 10 is new iPhones. Now, this does tie back into number 1 of the luxuries, but I wanted to put this in its own category because I am an Apple fanatic. I literally had every iPhone up until iPhone 7. This is the 7 Plus. I did not get the 8, obviously, because it was pretty much identical to this. I did not get the X. I did not get the XS. And now I'm not getting the 11. So for me, I've had every single iPhone for a while. And over the last couple of years, I've just realized that I don't really need the newest iPhone. This one is still the 7 Plus. It works fine. It does everything I need it to. It runs fast. I just got the battery replaced in it for free from Apple. But if you do need to get your battery replaced, if you're having issues with your phone, you take it there, they replace it for like 30 bucks. And ultimately, you don't need to go spend $1,000, $1,100 on a new phone. If it's just a battery issue, just go to Apple and get it replaced. But I think most of us just want to get that new phone so that we can show off to our friends, we can show off to our family members, we can try to take these cool new features and these animojis and show them off to our friends. And really, at the end of the day, you are seeking that validation from an external factor. You are spending money to impress people, and ultimately that is a big rabbit hole that you can go down, which is something that I've gone down. I have full experience with it. You're not going to get happiness from that. You're not going to feel fulfilled from that. It may feel good for the first week or two, but it's going to rub off. It's the same thing when you get a brand new car or something where you're showing something new off. It's going to be this new flashy thing for a couple weeks. It's going to wear off, and then now you're still stuck footing this bill. And especially for a phone, I don't think you should be leasing a phone. There's a lot of people who lease their phones. I mean, I'm sorry, but if you have to make payments on your phone, you can't afford it. Like, if you can't pay for it in full, don't buy it. There's a lot of people that are financing these brand new iPhones, and it's like, it just makes no sense. People are making payments on their phones, their cars, their credit cards, their shoes. You know, some people make payments on their electricity, you know, their TVs, their computers. I mean, people are just making payments on everything. And ultimately, that's the way that I used to operate. I used to think that if I could afford the payment, that I could afford to get it. And before I knew it, I was up to my neck in payments. I was making, 2 years ago when I first moved to Los Angeles, I was making over $1,800 a month in payments that I was sending in. And that was on top of my $1,700 rent. So before I even bought food, before I bought any essentials, gas, anything, I was already at $3,500 a month almost just to live and just to operate. So don't get so stuck on these payments and thinking that you can afford it, because if one thing goes wrong, you lose your job, your car breaks down, how are you going to be able to pay it? So this is ultimately the 10 sacrifices that I've had to make. And guys, I know that it can seem, I have been just like destroyed at some points. Like I felt hopeless. I felt so discouraged. I felt like there was no way out, and my behavior was like, well, I'm so far deep in this, I'm just going to keep spending. Stop immediately. You have to start taking action on actually fixing this situation, because if you just ignore it, you act like it doesn't exist, you get the statements in the mail and you just shred them, you don't even look at them, and you send in your minimum payment, you're just ignoring the problem. You're not actually acknowledging that there's a problem, and that's going to catch up with you, whether it's next year, next month, or 5 years from now. It's gonna catch up with you. So start taking action on it today. Start living the debt-free life. This is something I followed, the Dave Ramsey plan. If you guys are wondering how I've done this, I saved up $1,000 for my emergency fund. Everything else after that, every single month, goes straight towards the credit cards. And that's how I've been able to pay this off so fast. I had my initial income from Uber. I started doing video editing. I started doing YouTube. I started doing affiliate marketing. I had my online coaching. So I started to build more streams of income for me to be able to do this a lot faster. And that's how I've been able to pay off so much in this short amount of time, and making those sacrifices. Because making those temporary sacrifices for 2 years, 3 years, to live 30 years of your life however you want is so, so worth it. There's too many people that are stuck in this debt lifestyle for 30, 40, there's still 60-year-olds that are just, they have no money for retirement. They're 60 years old, they're still working at Walmart, and they're broke. They have no money because they've been in debt. They always give all their money to everybody else. So hopefully you guys can start doing this. If you took anything from this video, maybe you're gonna start making some sacrifices. Let me know down below what those sacrifices are and any questions that you guys have about everything here. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.